Hello, fairy finders and fairy seekers. Welcome to FaerieQuest and another episode of Real Fairies in Real Photos. This episode is called The Best of the Best and shows you what I believe are some of the best fairy photos I've been privy to take. Each of the 12 fairies in this video is a part of a 52 card deck, with their permission, of course, that shares their photo on one side and their name and a message given by them on the other side. I call this deck the Wee Folktoracles. For this video, I've used their names only, and you will see why they were chosen for this deck, as they are phenomenal fairy photos. Though all 12 of these fairies are fantastic, each one gets a little more clear and a little more incredible as the video progresses. Before we get started, please use your magic wand to zap that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and consider supporting this channel using the link in the description box below. I would be so appreciative for any and all actions you take. Okay, let's take a look at the best of the best. This is Ursula. We can see her stylish hat and her face quite clearly. She either has very short hair or no hair. This lets us see her ear, which, if you look closely, has a tiny round earring on the lobe. Ursula appears to be thinking, at least in my opinion, due to the position of her arm and her hand next to her face. Her hand is closed right by her mouth, with her index finger resting on her cheek. She seems to have found a nice, private place to do her thinking. This little one gives his name as Chaz. We can see that he is up in a tree. The hat he has fashioned is quite shiny, and he appears to be wearing an eye patch. His facial features are quite fine, but we can see one eye, which looks closed, the eye patch eye, his nose, and mouth. I believe his hair may be long enough in back to be in a ponytail. His shoulder, arm, and hand can be seen as well. This is Zeke. He is peering at us through the leaves, and we can see just how small he is in comparison to the leaves. He is wearing a brown hat which matches his clothing, though we can't make that out clearly. His face is clear though. He is wearing glasses, his nose is reflecting the sun, and his mouth and chin are defined. He is blurry in the photo above due to his size. Here we have Geoff. He was quite clever, hiding himself in the crevice of this stump. He appears to be dressed in uniform, like a sailor, but in black. We see his hat, the left side of his face as we look at him, and what I believe is his shoulder and arm. The right side of his face as we look at him is in shadow. This fairy has given his name as Opine. Though he has blended himself with the rock, we can see his face with bushy eyebrows, nose, and mouth. There is no problem seeing his hair, and his ankles and feet stand out clearly as well. Remember, these fairies can create themselves or blend themselves using whatever is around them. Opine has used several natural materials here. Meet Oyen. She is dressed as a nun or someone from medieval times. She has formed herself from the sunlight, which leads me to believe that she is an elemental. Though unclear, we can see where her face is, but it appears to be under the veil. She is wearing a long dress that covers her feet. If you look at the photo on the left, she stands out clearly as she walks through the tall grass and leaves. Thoris is the name of this fairy. I have lightened the photo above for you so that her details are easier to see. Her face is clear with dark eyes. We are actually seeing her eyelids as she is looking downward. Her nose, mouth, rosy-looking cheeks, and an adorable little rounded chin. Her hair is curly, and we see a pigtail on the side. If you look closely, you can see she is wearing a sweeping black dress or cape, and she is bent over tending to something very intently. This is Esmerelda. She reminds me of a professor or a judge. She is wearing a very interesting hat, and it matches her robes. We can see her face, though not clearly. Her nose is long, and she is wearing glasses. She almost appears to be sitting in a chair, reading or examining something. I would guess her to be a no-nonsense kind of fairy. This fairy calls himself Jeremiah. He is quite clear in both photos, to the left and above. He is wearing what looks like an aviator hat, dark sunglasses, and has a very thick beard and mustache. His dark sunglasses look like they have lights or something decorative across the top. We can also see his fingers as he holds on to the leaf next to him. I get the impression he is squatting down as he looks from behind the leaves. This is Nicaea. He appears to just be hanging out in the leaves, at least part of him anyway. We can see his somewhat pointed, hairless head, eyebrows, closed eyes, his nose, and what looks like his lower lip. His crossed arms are also quite unmistakable. He is a pretty phenomenal fairy. It looks like we have Jacob, the pirate, here. He is a really small fairy compared to the leaves, so I am surprised at how well he enlarged. We see his pirate hat and his peg leg clearly. His face is not as clear, though we can make out where his dark eyes are and see his nose. The rest of his face is in shadow. His left arm goes in front of his body and is holding on to what could be a stick sword. Not sure if this fairy is a child or an adult, but he is definitely dressed the part of an authentic pirate. The photo you see here is for the next frame of this video, for the next fairy, and the last that I am showing you in this video. I wanted you to see what the whole photo looks like with the orb and the spider web, and also then the fairy, which I've put in the box above. When you see the fairy in the photo on the next frame, you're only getting a portion of this photo because YouTube has its limitations for size. I just really wanted you to see exactly where in the full photo this fairy showed herself. This is Topay. She is a very unique fairy, reminding me of a superhero. She is wearing a helmet with a gold band across the front. Her face is a bit hard to see, but we can make out one dark eye and her nose. She is leaning back, holding on with both hands to what I am calling a weight, the dark ball. We can see her hair and one leg and foot. She is really amazing.